Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inchin Closer's event on job opportunities for tech entrepreneurs and professionals in who speak Mandarin. So we have two very special guests today, Mr. Mukesh Sharma of Tech Mahindra and Mr. Rao Tarasila. I will now like to introduce our first speaker, Mr. Mukesh Sharma. Mr. Mukesh Sharma is the country head, vice president, and board member of Greater China at Tech Mahindra, a $5 billion global enterprise with 110,000 associates, serving over 700 clients worldwide. Since he took over in 2010, Mukesh has expanded the business in the region by opening new companies and forming joint ventures and M&As in new technology areas, providing continuity to existing business relations and improving client satisfaction. Today, Tech Mahindra has achieved leadership positions in servicing engineering clients across industries, including automotive, healthcare, and life sciences. Prior to Tech Mahindra, Mukesh worked for auto giants like Suzuki Motors and Tata Motors in India and Japan. So how did Mr. Mukesh land up in China? Well, he graduated from IIM Bangalore's Executive Postgraduate Program in 2010, from where he did an exchange program at China's prestigious Tsinghua University that led to his interest and calling in China. Mukesh is also the president of the Indian Association, and interestingly, he is also a TEDx license owner and is an active in organizing Indo-China cultural and business events. Welcome, Mr. Mukesh.
Hi, thanks Nazia, Shijao, and all the Inchin Closure team members. Thank you very much for the nice introduction. Also, welcome my friend also, Mr. Rao. In Shanghai, we had great time, sometime meeting. So good to see the world is small, and also all the audience and the students or the professionals who are there. So thank you very much for giving this opportunity. I will just first of all, I must say that Inchin Closure is doing something which is very important in current times, and especially when the business has globalized so much, and especially countries like Japan, China, Korea, or even any country where the language is different. It is very important for professionals to learn the language and work together. So I got an opportunity to work in Japan for almost 7-8 years. So learn Japanese. I was in more younger in those days. I was talking to Nazia that it gave me more time to learn the language and become more proficient, which helped a lot to make friends, to make a lot of business partnerships. And then moving on to China, as Nazia told, that what brought me to China. Then of course learning the Chinese language. But then of course when you go into the career path, you may not get so much of time. But yes, it helps because people connect with the language. It's always human to human connect. But anyway, we'll talk about all those things, but let me just put a few slides which Nazia has asked me to actually present. The topic I've chosen is the India-China a complementary force. So the idea is that I would first give a little bit of a content that, of course, we'll talk a little bit about I come from the IT and the engineering services industry, so I'll talk about the overview at the end, and then what we're doing in the AI solutions part. I believe that Rao is an expert from the AI ML side, so we'll definitely look forward to hear from him as well. This is a small, slide which just wanted to put as just to put the context that this is an press release we did 2 years ago in China from Tech Mahindra that India's plan to become $5 trillion economy was given by Prime Minister Modi at that time, and our CEO, Mr. Gunani, was here, and I was hosting him in Shanghai along with a lot of business leaders. And we believe that China and India, while they may have several challenges on geopolitical issues or other sentiments, but overall being neighbors for 5,000 years, sharing 4,000 kilometers of border, and the kind of sectoral exchange which actually exists in both countries as a manufacturing hub for China and a software hub for India. I think the both countries has a great collaboration which can be done. So I still believe that in sync with what our Prime Minister feels and what our CEO feels, that India and China will have a great journey ahead. And if India wants to become a 5 trillion economy, then people who are working there or people who are working here, they have to learn each other's language, and therefore language will play a very, very important role. One thing I want to also talk, this is my favorite slide whenever I talk about China in different opportunities I get. I believe that China has one thing which students or professionals who are here must understand, that China thinks in a very grand way, and they have a history of doing things in past and also now in a very big grand way. So whether it was building the Great Wall of China for 5,000 miles, or whether it was building that great Grand Canal or the Silk Route, or even the voices, you can imagine there are the picture shows a picture of a big ship, which is a Chinese ship, and the small ship is actually the ship which Vasco da Gama used for traveling the whole world. So you can imagine that whatever China does, they do in a very grand way, even making the longest sea bridge, or even the place of Shanghai where we have been living actually. There is it is old picture of 1993 and 2010. When I came to China in 2010, this was Shanghai. Now, if I put a 2020 or 21 picture, you will have a little bit more skyscrapers ahead. And some people who are Chinese will be in the call, they may really try to appreciate that. So overall, if you look at China as a culture, thinks in a very big way and a grand way. And therefore, this is very important to note when we are interacting with them in their culture, when we want to do some business with them. This is something I would not spend more time, but then this definitely shows that it is a 14, $15 trillion economy, progress so fast in so many last at least 15 or 20 years. And the kind of growth rate they have shown is tremendous. And India is close to probably a 2.8, $3 trillion economy. And probably after pandemic, there will be some corrections. But even if we keep that aside, I think a long way India has to catch up. And the way the economies are going ahead, probably Japan, Germany, UK, France has come to their maturity and saturation. So the only country which can come closer at number 3 is India. So if we make a $5 trillion economy, as we was talking the first slide, we will definitely be the top 3 economies. So there's a lot of potential for us to work with them. And this slide is just important. Maybe a half a minute I'll spend that for professionals to see that China has risen because of the state-owned and the private sector. And if you look at, while we say that it is a country where the government makes a lot of decisions, but the kind of atmosphere they've created for their private companies to grow and their unicorns to grow and their entrepreneurs to thrive is phenomenal. Whether it is new retail, whether it is advanced manufacturing, fintech, big health, new energy vehicles, mobility, anywhere. I have spent considerable time in the auto industry, so I can say that the kind number of auto companies which exist here is completely outsmarts whatever we see in India or even some of the Europe and the US nations. So overall, these are the probably the companies where, and all of these companies in each sector, whether it is Huawei, Haier, or probably Byton or Neo or even the Pingan, all of them are trying to globalize. So they're all going outside. They're going to India, they're going to Europe, they're going to US. So the opportunities for them, for the people who are learning Mandarin, exist anywhere in any part of the world. And therefore, it's a very bright future if you are definitely having a great hand on Mandarin. But if we talk about the Indian IT industry growth, IT industry of India has grown significantly, and China is a place where I feel that companies like Tech Mahindra and even our peers, while we have grown, when I came to China in 2010, we were around 100 people, and now we are close to 1,400 people in China now, this year. We have grown for saying purpose around 14 times, but we still feel that we have underboiled the China market. And the prime reason is that probably we haven't been able to crack the code of the language. We are still, relying on whatever work we do locally, but somehow we have not been able to get great talent from India who speaks, Chinese. And I was a little bit disappointed when we saw the new education policy which came last year from India, that Mandarin is still not the a part of the offering courses in the Indian education system. I feel that if we can have that, probably it will also probably promote the Mandarin language in India. And it's very important because if you really want to be a 5 trillion economy and want to really grow, it is important. And the Indian IT sector has grown considerably very well, almost going more than $250 billion and employs almost 600,000 people in India alone in the top companies. And they have significant interest in the China market. So Mandarin language will play a very important role. Even in Tech Mahindra, we don't have many Mandarin speakers in India who contribute to our business here. That's something probably a gap which we need to plug on. This also shows that how the Indian IT industry, has helped India to grow over, though the data is a little bit dated, but it also shows that how, it has been growing up. So people who are actually learning Mandarin language, they will probably find great opportunities in the IT companies because a lot of program management work happens. A lot of work happens where you have to coordinate, do discovery meetings with the customers and do a bridging gap. I think India and Japan could figure out a good way because there are a lot of Japanese speakers who are available in India and contributing for the business between India and Japan. I think something that in between India and China should happen. And I'm sure that Inchin Closer is playing their role and will continue to play that and strengthen it. This shows that these are the top 5 companies, including our peers like HCL, Infosys, TCS, Wipro. We all are present in China, and we constitute almost 25% of our Indian IT industry. So these are big giants, and then also there are tier 2, tier 3 companies behind this who have significant interest in the China market. So I think people can definitely look at and then if they position themselves well with their domain knowledge and along with the Mandarin, I think these could be important targets for them. Then also, when we work for these companies, when I showed the last slide where I was talking about our company and other peer competitors, these are the customers we work for, whether it is an Apple or Amazon or Walmart or AT&T. So we are providing services or IT, support or probably cloud services for all these customers. And all these customers are invariably present in India and also in China. So Mandarin speakers will not only have opportunities in IT companies, but also in these companies. So this is also an important thing which, these are growing, and all these companies have China as the biggest growth market, whether it is Amazon, whether it is Apple, whether it is, United Healthcare, General Motors, many of them. Of course, Facebook, and Facebook is not present here, but then Google is big time here, and they have their big R&D centers in Beijing and Shanghai. And so if someone plays important role bridging between India and China, working across, then it's very important. Some important things I'll just brush upon is that when you learn Mandarin language, I don't know from which backgrounds you're coming, but important thing is also to note that these are the critical important things which China is looking to take help from Indian markets. So companies like us are selling them health monitoring systems for their aircraft systems, or probably making driverless car softwares, or helping them in the Internet of Things. So it's very important when I select people for any hirings and who are Mandarin speakers and non-native Chinese, we also look at that, are they aware of these domain knowledges? If they come from the domain expertise and they are Mandarin speakers, it's probably icing on the cake. But otherwise, formalization into these areas is very, very important because this is what actually a lot of exchange between India and China companies are happening in product software. Enterprise and factory software is another area where robotic process automation or artificial intelligence, blockchain, internet, and factory of future. These are other areas where a lot of job openings are there, and Mandarin language is very, very big additional advantage. So how overall, if you look at a framework, how Chinese companies can leverage the IT industry, from our is the access to the capability, which actually fits into end clients, access to a software capacity, and access to a lot of IPs and platforms. So an understanding that what value you can bring in these areas will help to get the jobs much faster and add more value to the areas you're targeting. A little bit about Tech Mahindra, you already described that we are a large multinational company present in 90 countries, and China is a market where we are still small. We contribute close to 2.5% of our global revenue from China. So we are around 5.2 billion now globally, and we do close to $120 million in China. So we feel that we have a potential to probably grow up to half a billion in China, maybe next 5 years. But that will require a significant working between India and China, and significant Mandarin speaker Indian resources will be needed, because the software capability of Indian resources is at par, or maybe in some cases higher. And India also offers a cost arbitrage as compared to China, because 30 to 40% cost advantages are there. So in that way, I think India can become a good, great offshore location for the Chinese market. So I'll just take a stop here. We have our business process landscape, where we have also 44,000 people working in the call centers who provide even call center support. Currently, we have a call center in Dalian, where we have Chinese speaking, English, also Japanese speaking, Korean speaking people. But we do not have a call center in India where we have Mandarin speaking people. So I would love to see if we can get access to some 3,000 Mandarin speaking people in India, and we can probably expand our call center support from the Indian market. So I'll just take a pause, because I have our dear colleague, Mr. Rao, also. But just to say in the end that it is important to integrate AI. So we also set up an AI lab in Shanghai 4 years ago with a Chinese company. And so AI will also play a very important role in speech recognition and making sure that people are able to understand and learn the language much faster. So I'll just take a pause here just to give a flavor. And over to you, Nasia.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sharma. This was a really interesting presentation, and thank you for laying the groundwork of what the Indian and Chinese IT industry is about, and also what that the fact that Tech Mahindra is hiring. So if anybody over here is interested, then maybe we can also reach out to them, and you can let us know specific job requirements, right? So now I would like to introduce Mr. Rao. Um, Tirumala Rao is a seasoned technology leader with a successful track record of delivering commercial products and outstanding customer success outcomes at Cisco, IBM, and startups in Seattle, Silicon Valley, and China. Rao is currently the VP of Customer Success at Defined Crowd in Seattle. Rao most recently worked at Xnor.ai, which was acquired by Apple in 2020. Rao has expertise in a variety of areas, but his main focus at Xnor was helping commercialize their AI and ML technology. Before Xnor, Rao worked at a data science company called Mu Sigma, where he helped build their China business from the ground up. Before that, he was director of engineering at Cisco Systems in Shanghai. Rao obtained his bachelor's degree in computer science from the Birla Institute of Technology and Science, Pilani, India, and a master's degree in electrical engineering from Northeastern University in Boston, Massachusetts. He also attended MBA study at the Booth School of Business at the University of Chicago. So welcome, Mr. Rao. Very nice to see you. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Nazia, for the for the kind intro, and Mukesh, it's always good to see you, whether it's online or in person, and nice to meet you also, Xiaojie. So should we start in Chinese or in English?
I think in English.
Okay.
Though I know that your Mandarin is perfect.
Oh, it's okay.
Our listeners are more Mandarin language learners, so we can try a few Mandarin words with them, but
it's okay.
in English.
大家你好，我是我的中文名字是劳西路，是劳动的劳，城西的西，马路的路。我是来自印度的，但是我是很长时间在美国待了。所以我可以okay. Anyway, I'll go ahead and speak in English. Hi. So just to give some background of myself. Right. As Nazia was mentioning, I did my computer science in India in the late 80s. And then I came to the US for postgraduate. And then I lived and I worked in the US for the next 15 years. Worked at large companies such as IBM and also startups in Silicon Valley. And in Silicon Valley, I met my wife, who happens to be from Shanghai. And then, as you know, sometimes life brings you to strange destinations. And it just happens that I ended up in Shanghai in 2003. And first I thought it's 3 or 4 years, but it just ended up being 15 years. So I was in Shanghai for 15 years up to 2018. And I worked at large companies such as Cisco and Mu Sigma. I'm sure folks of you might be familiar with Mu Sigma. It's a Bangalore-based company. And I also worked in startups in China. So and now, end of 2018, I came back to the US, and I'm in Seattle since then. So that's has been my journey. And before moving to China, I learned some Chinese while I was in the US. But people usually think that, oh, I learned Chinese from my wife. Actually, the truth is, I didn't learn anything from my wife. So I think people who are married would know that spouses make spouses are not the good teachers. So, but most of my Chinese language learning happened on my own. So I attended private instructions while I was back in China. So I spent about 3 years part-time. I think every week I spent about 4 to 6 hours. And so I spent about 3 years. And after that, I was able to read, write, and speak Chinese. And I was able to run all my business meetings at Cisco in China in Chinese. So that's my background. Or Indian tech entrepreneurs learn from China. That's how it is, right? As Mukesh and Xiaojie would attest, right? In China, time is everything. There's a lot of value for time, right? If you say there's a meeting at 3 p.m., people show up at 2:50 p.m., right? There's absolute respect for time, right? And say, for example, even in personal life, you asked a carpenter to come at 8 a.m. in the morning to fix something, or a plumber to come at 7:30 to fix something. Quite often, they're half an hour early, right? So it's just that there's that tremendous amount of respect for time, and it's not just this respect for time is in big cities. Even if you go to tier 2, tier 3 cities and towns, that's a discipline that they have with regards to time. And then, for example, when an employee shows up at work at 9:30 or whatever it is, and they stay until 5 or 5:30, right? They're the employee is available for you as an entrepreneur, for you to use them, right? So they don't have the chai breaks that we have it in India. So it's like once you at work, until you leave, you're there for work. So that respect and discipline for time is there. And the second thing is the focus, right? So the Chinese companies are absolutely focused, right? And they dream big, right? And as Mukesh would attest, Chinese companies, they're not thinking of, a billion-dollar enterprise or something. They want to be the big dog in the world, right? They just want to beat the Americans, right? They want to be bigger than the Americans. So their goal is much bigger. So that's what I think Indian 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 companies and Indian tech entrepreneurs have to be aware in a way that there's something good to be learned, right? I think respect for time and being focused, laser focused on your goal and dreaming big is a good thing. So how it's done, you have to adapt that into your local environment. But Indian entrepreneurs have to be aware this is what uh, they're dealing with, right? So the other question Nazia wanted was, hey, what are the new applications that the Chinese are applying AI and ML to? I would say that in general, um, from the data that I've seen in 2019 and in 2020, healthcare and autonomous cars are the two domains where Chinese companies are putting a lot of investment in dollar in yuan and effort into it. So I'll show you a graph. So this is the number of AI startups in China by the industry. So as you could see in the left part of the graph, the healthcare and the car industry, they just dominate uh, the number of AI startups. Um, and China is making some very in incredible strides in healthcare. And I would not be surprised that they're coming up with very interesting innovations uh, at a at scale that no other country in the world, not even the US or Europe, can match to that level. This is just a glimpse of all these healthcare startups and large companies in different sectors within the healthcares. So I won't go into the details. So the other question Nasia wanted is that, hey, okay, yeah, this is all well and good. Now, how did Mandarin really help you, right, your personal growth? So the first thing is that for me, I spent 15 years in China. Having that ability to uh, speak, read, and write Chinese, it really enriched my living and working in China. I was able to communicate better with people around me, whether I'm at work or at home surroundings. Because once I came home, I was in a Chinese environment, right? My wife is of Chinese origin. My in-laws are from Shanghai. So I lived in a very, very local compound. There was no foreigners. So once I came in, I was the only foreigner in my whole environment. So having that language ability really helped me under connect to the local people. It's the same thing. For example, I grew up in Andhra Pradesh, speaking Telugu. But say, for example, if I end up in Pune, say, just imagine if I was able to speak Marathi, the level of conversations, the depth of conversations that I can have in Pune with Marathi is way different than what I can use English or Hindi. Same thing. I think in China, or while you're dealing with Chinese companies or Chinese colleagues, just having that language capability, you just increase that the depth of conversation that you have. So the other thing is that good or bad, China is going to be the dominant, China is one of the dominant superpowers. You have to live with that superpower anyway, good or bad. So better, just acquire that skill, right? Second place where it really helped me and also help others is that it just increases your credibility. As you must have seen, Mandarin is a tough language to learn. You have to spend a lot of effort to acquire that fluency. So just being able to speak at a conversational level, you increase the confidence from the people that you're actually dealing with, because even Chinese, they know that Mandarin is a tough language, and the fact that some foreigner could come up to them and then speak to them on their turf in their language, instantly the Chinese would recognize you as almost somebody that they have to deal with seriously, right? And also, even in the U.S., there's a lot of Chinese diaspora working in large companies, right? And for example, even me in Seattle, sometimes when I have calls with customers, and some of the staff in those calls are Chinese or origin, and when I have a side conversation with them in Chinese, it's just they'll be like, "Wow, this guy has spent the time to learn Chinese and just improves the credibility." Right. That's the second thing. Third one is the being having that language capability just gives you access to those opportunities that are available only for Chinese speakers. For example, when I was in China in the 2003, I worked at other company, one company called iGate. I think some of you in India might have been familiar with. I worked there for 3 years, and within the 3 years, I learned Chinese and all that stuff. And then at the time, Cisco in Shanghai, Cisco Systems, the large $50 billion company, it was looking to replace all the expats in uh, Cisco in China, but with the criteria that they want only Chinese-speaking folks, right? And when they were looking for an executive, they found me. And one of the very reason they really picked me is because I could speak Chinese. Because the mandate that was given to the country head of Cisco is that if you're hiring a foreigner, please don't hire anyone who cannot speak Chinese, because we want to localize the operations. So if you want to localize the operations, we don't want expats who come in and out of the country. We want somebody who can relate to the staff, because there were 2,000 people at the time in Cisco. So that, for me, being a director of engineering at Cisco was possible only because, one of the big reasons, because I could speak Chinese. So that's the thing. And in China, AI is really used in daily life. For example, speech recognition. In speech recognition, China has made tremendous progress, and especially this company called iFlyTech. Their speech recognition in Chinese is like extraordinary. And this facial recognition systems is also tremendous. For example, if you go into any of the tourist locations, there you don't need a ticket, right? Once you buy a ticket, your face becomes the ticket, right? It's incredible how many applied AI use cases that you find it in China. With that, Nazia, I will stop sharing.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Rao. That was a really interesting presentation. And I'm glad that you brought in your personal experiences of living and working in China and how important Mandarin is, because often we tell our students about how important it is to learn Mandarin, just to be able to assimilate in a new country. So not only is it important for like job applications and understanding an international perspective, but just to get to know the country slightly better. So I'm glad that you touched on all these various points where Mandarin is applied and how important it is to learn the language. So thank you very much. And now I would like to pass it on to my colleague and partner, Ms. Wang Xiaojie. We're going to have a short panel discussion where she will ask our speakers a few questions, and we'll keep it in an informal conversational style discussion. So over to you, Xiaojie.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Mukesh and Mr. Rao, for your insight, for sharing. So I think both of you have lived and worked, dealt with Chinese companies for many years. So we're curious to know a bit more about the challenges or difficulties or key learnings that you have had, during the years when you were still trying to adjust to Chinese culture, particularly dealing with the tech space in China. I guess, Mukesh, would you like to go first?
Yeah. Right. Today's session is on the perspective of language. So I'll keep my answers only to the language perspective. So I think the key challenges, around 10 years ago, and even sometime if I look at comes, is that when you talk in tier 2 or tier 3 cities, a lot of Chinese middle management or top management people will not speak English. And at that point of time, when you socialize with them, a conversational Chinese is good to at least come closer. But when you go into more technical discussions and when you go into more deeper discussions, for the business, then definitely a high-level Chinese is important. As Rao mentioned, that Chinese companies, dream big, so they want to differentiate themselves from the top of the top or best in class. So when you come as a technical person or as a business person, if you're able to speak in Chinese, definitely they will value that. But then also, I would say that it also puts an additional pressure on to the person who's speaking in Chinese, because then they really start expecting more out of them. Sometimes if you speak in a non-Chinese language, they will discount you as not knowing the culture and can pardon you with certain mistakes you might commit. But if you are speaking good Chinese, then they will expect that you have to be very much familiar with the Chinese culture. So there are certain sometimes disadvantages also.
Sometimes better to pretend not to know the language.
So if you really speak good language, then you have to be quite careful about their culture.
So, Ra, do you have anything to add?
Yeah. So I think Mukesh covered it mostly professionally. I would say is that there's also a similar thing in the private life also, right? Sometimes I speak Chinese, so my in-laws or somebody else, my wife's cousins, think that I understand everything, right? So sometimes so I play the foreigner card sometimes. I just said, hey, look, I didn't understand what he's saying. This is not what I, kind of thing. So I can play that foreigner card sometimes, but sometimes they they know that you can speak Chinese, but they don't know what level of Chinese you can speak, because Chinese is like it's like an onion, right? You think you understand Chinese, you peel a layer of onion, and then there's another layer of onion, another layer of onion, right? So even me, I'm kind of careful when I say it. So when I know that um, the Chinese speaker, what they're speaking is at a different level, then I set the expectation down. Just saying is that, look, I cannot speak at that political level, what you're talking about. This is my level, right? And, and sometimes it's good to say upfront, just saying is that, look, I don't understand, right? I don't understand, right? So
That's an easy
sometimes,
one. I think we all learn that. Think
yeah.
pudong.
I think actually our session today actually does not have to only focus on language. So I think if you have any extra points when it comes to culture or like personality, like especially when it comes to tech space, is there anything else that you think an Indian professional should be aware of, when they work with Chinese people in this area?
So I would say that I think the Chinese, I think the strength is that they're very focused. They dream big, and if you know what the problem is, and if you kind of give a hint on where the solution is, they execute so well, right? But the Indians strength is you give a vaguely phrased problem, right? Indians have good at coming up with uh, 10 solutions, 10 possible solutions, right? But so Indians' strength is coming up with these ideas and all these solutions. But Chinese ecosystem strength is that they'll just pick one. If you ask your Chinese staff, they'll come up with just one solution, but they can execute it mercilessly, right? So that's the thing. So whenever you're working with a mixed team, right, so you have to understand that the strengths of each teams, and you have to blend it. Yeah.
Mukesh, do you have anything to add when working with your Chinese
Right.
team members in China? Yeah.
Right. I mean, just extended the point which Rao said, that there is a concept in manufacturing industry, if some people will understand, is called Six Sigma. And Six Sigma is mostly related to how you can produce parts in manufacturing with not more than 3 defects in 1 million parts. And that can only be achieved if you are, adhere to the process very well, and you can execute flawlessly. I think, and it is directly related to the quality of the work. I think, I feel that, as Rao said, that we are very good in India in ideation, but when it comes to execution and really producing a quality part, we miss that. And the reason we miss as compared to Chinese is that, China has been able to adopt the Six Sigma approach in their daily work life very well. Wherever they have seen the gaps and problems, they have really plugged those holes in a very right way. And somehow in India, we are aware of those problems, but we are not able to really plug those problems. If I feel that this is a problem, I will start living with that problem forever. And then if a group of people will start living with that problem, then the whole company starts living with the problem. And somewhere we go far away from that Six Sigma. So our defect level is much higher than China. And in that way, if I say, because I work in Japan, Japan is even higher than probably China, because they will not even live with a single defect. So I think it's all about how closer we become or start living a Six Sigma life, which I think Chinese as large has been able to figure out better than us.
Yeah. To add to Mukesh, and in the interest of generating bad ideas from Mukesh, I would just say that I agree with that Six Sigma framework, but I also think that the fundamental difference between India and China is, I think, the respect for time. Right. As I say, for example, in India, I'll give you an example. In Delhi or Hyderabad or something, how many times I give the clothes to the dhobi, and the dhobi says, "Bhai sahab, parsu aa jao," right? I mean, he says that, "Oh, come back tomorrow. Tomorrow 5 p.m. It's ready. It's ready. 5 p.m. is ready." But you go at 5 p.m. and the guy says, "Something happened. Come back tomorrow," or something like that. But in China, as you see that when they say 5 p.m., oh, you go and collect it, but at 5 p.m. is ready. It's just that I think it's in the culture. I think the time gets respect in Japan,
Right.
as you correctly said. It gets respect in China. It gets respect in US. But time is much more fungible in India, right?
Right.
That's
Right.
why in manufacturing or somewhere you need precision.
I did not give a full definition of Six Sigma, but time is an important part of it, because even Six Sigma says that you have to create a defectless throughput in a reduced cycle time. So time is an important vector actually anyways. And it's not that you keep on remove the defect, but don't respect the time. So time definitely comes into the picture.
Makes sense. Interesting. I guess the follow-up question is that I think both of you have touched upon a lot of the internal factors, like the self-driven, the focus, the ambition, etc., in the Chinese tech entrepreneur or companies. But in your own experience, what are the other like external factors that have contributed to the tech achievements in the last decade in China? Government policies or investment or education or anything that you have experienced, based on your interactions in China.
So I think one certainly helped in China is obviously the infrastructure, right? Infrastructure is very, very good. Second, a second thing is also this one language, right? 92 or 95% of all Chinese, right, can understand Mandarin, right? At least read, right? So that helps. So that's one large market. But in India, it's all fractured into regional languages, right? So there's no one big mega company in India, internet company that can address the whole of the country. But in China, you can have Taobao, or you could have Shama Weibo, Weixin, because they're just one language, you're done. Right? In India, it's all fractured, so they all depend on foreign companies such as Google or whatever, Yahoo, and things like that.
Interesting. Makes sense. Mr. Sharma, do you have anything to add on that?
Yeah, I think I can see a lot of people are our Indian, colleagues on the call, so I can mention that. See, what Rao said is absolutely correct, that government policies and all are there. There is one concept which I learned from one of the top consultants here, is that China has a three-layered duality principle, which means you have the central government, you have the, the middle level municipal government, and then the entrepreneur layer. So they work in a very great sync. But I will give one different example, which I feel made a big difference to China's growth, is the, I would say, women's safety or overall safety, actually, because I see, in my own Tech Mahindra, out of 1,400 people, I have 57% women working. 57% women are working in our company.
Oh, wow.
And even if I look at the leadership roles, we have around 30 top people in our company who are in leadership. There are 23 ladies, actually, only 7 men. So, and the reason I'm driving this point is that the women can work late, odd timing, double income groups without no hindrance. The whole GDP lifted to phenomenal heights. And China progressed because here women and men work together and women work more. So it's very simple, if you have two members working in the family overnight, 24/7, no issues of safety, suddenly your education levels will improve, your living style will improve. Then whatever government is spending, infrastructure, more money comes, more tax comes. So it becomes a very upward, spiral effect. I think India, we seriously lack, not only infrastructure is one thing which we definitely cry, but I think we lack the safety part of it. If we can improve the women's safety, I think we can become richer in 5 years.
Wow, interesting. That's a very interesting point. I have to conclude with one last question. I think which most of our students are concerned about is like if for a young Indian professional who wants to pursue a career in the tech space, for both of you have lived in many different countries, in India, US, Japan, China. So on the global stage, for Indian young professional who would like to pursue a long-term career in the tech space, what would be your piece of advice for them? Keeping in mind of the importance of Chinese language, but also on the global stage, how can a young professional prepare themselves for the future?
I think if you're actually disciplined, you'll shine anywhere. Just get your time discipline in order. Get your focus. I actually think like a Chinese company. I said, get your time discipline, meaning that if you tell your mom or dad or whatever it is that, hey, I'm going to do this by 3 p.m., better do it by 3 p.m. right? Start simple, right? Focus on things, think big, think big. So if you're disciplined, things will happen.
Healthcare is an important area where countries like India and China, we have half of the world's population living. This will be a significant area where growth will come. So I think if somehow people can focus in health plus technology areas and focus there, I think a lot of spending is happening from the China government, and I'm sure there's a lot of spending will happen from Indian government side. There are a lot of new avenues will open, and after the pandemic, I think. Healthcare, e-commerce or healthcare startups, etc., will emerge more faster. I think Rao also showed in one of his slides that healthcare is an area where most startups have come in. So I think people should look at probably contributing towards the healthcare side. If I can remind my life 20 years back or maybe 30 years back when I had a chance to become an engineer or a doctor, probably I would choose to become a doctor because probably we need more healthcare professionals now the way things are shaping in last 2.5 years. And of course the second thing is mobility. Transportation is something which as human beings is a great revolution we achieved in 150 years. So transportation is another area where growth will keep on happening. So I come from the auto industry, so I feel that healthcare and automotives will definitely be an important area. You will close your eyes and move into these industries, and you will definitely meet success.
If I could just add one thing, if I have to, some young high school student comes up and says, which field do you want me to study? I would just say is that if you ask me now, life sciences and AI is a hot area, been together. So that means that you need to study, you need to be good at biology and good at math, which both these two fields, it didn't go together earlier, but it's gonna come. So if you could focus both on biology and math, I think there's a bright career.
One last request, if any of you are looking to hire Indian professionals with Mandarin language skills, make sure you share the JD with Inchin Closer. We have a pool of great students available for you. Yeah, I think now we would like to open the floor to our audience. And Nazia, any questions from the audience?
Yep, we have one question from Ritik. He says, in addition to Chinese language, what are some of the other skills that Chinese language speakers should know in order to get into the IT industry? Mr. Sharma, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I think I would say that, people who are taking Chinese more seriously, and I feel that Chinese love poetry a lot, and every country loves poetry. Somewhere the poems, and these things are very close to everyone's heart. So if they can learn famous Chinese poems, because you need stories during conversations to build relationships, even to do business, you need stories. And I think poems and history really create that bridge. So if people can spend time and they can reach to Rao's level, then definitely I would say I would love to read Chinese poetry and understand and talk about it, because it's
and then Mukesh is going to hire them right away.
Absolutely, absolutely. Because if because business happens between human to human, ultimately it is a human connect.
Okay, we'll take in one last question, which is, what would you suggest for freshers who would like to work for global companies or Chinese companies, but live and basically are in India? So they want to work for international companies out of India. How can they get access to these and start working with these international companies?
I think they should start a startup to teach and we make people learn Mandarin more and more actually, and join Inchin Closer and work with Inchin Closer and probably create more Mandarin speakers. Then we can put up a call center in India rather than Dalian.
Right, that would also save you a lot of cost.
Absolutely.
Brilliant. Rao, any last words?
Nope. I think so you guys are doing a great job. I know that right now the geopolitical situation is a little bit tense between China, US, and India, but this thing will change in 5 years, right? So in a way, you want to prepare yourself what's going to happen in 5 years, not what's going to happen in 3 months, right? That's how strategic China is. That's how strategic we all have to be.
You need to think ahead.
Yeah.
says, the question is, China is leading in AI in a big way. What are the opportunities for Indian entrepreneurs to associate with Chinese AI companies and benefit based out of India beyond a call center? So how do Indian companies benefit out of Chinese AI? So I'm assuming this is an entrepreneur who wants to know more about how he can leverage his company with Chinese AI.
Yeah, see, I think I would say is that many Chinese companies, as I said, they dream big. They want to be the biggest dog on the planet, right? So if you want to be a biggest dog on the planet, you also have to be a big dog in India, right? They know that India has a large population and things like that. So collaborating with them would be one straightforward way. And that's why it's a challenge back to Nazia and Xiaojie. You guys could be the bridge that so the entrepreneurs could come and to you and say, hey, I am so and so, so and so. I'm looking for some partners in China that I can talk with.
Yeah, so we do help with this in select circumstances. We are able to bridge certain entrepreneurs and companies with each other. Big presence in AI.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. But AI sector is very large in different areas. I don't know which sector they want to look at. But if you look at Chinese AI companies are far superior than India and even far superior than in US. So sometimes it's difficult to beat them in their own game. But if you look at facial recognition or voice recognition, these are two important areas which are coming up. So if we look at image recognition in one area, then probably entrepreneurs in India can partner with AI companies to white label their solutions for the India market. It could be in the healthcare sector because a lot of research in China has been going in detecting the diseases by using the X-ray images or the CT scan images. And India and China are two large countries where you need a huge data set of points to figure out the diseases, diagnosis, etc. So I think those algorithms and engines are far superiorly developed in China. And I think if those can be repackaged or used to, those search engines, they are highly trained on thousands and millions of images. I think there are certain areas, this is a large, very broad, deep question, which will require a deep analysis in which sector you want to enter. But I feel that Chinese AI solutions can be white labeled for the Indian market, case by case.
Okay, thank you very much, both Mr. Rao as well as Mr. Sharma, for being a part of our panel discussion on technology for Mandarin language learners. We've covered many different job aspects. We've covered how Mandarin is so important. We've understood a little bit about Chinese culture, how time is important, and like the aspect of women contributing to the GDP as well, right? And of course, if anyone's Mandarin is good, Mr. Mukesh Sharma is willing to hire people to set up a call center in India. So yeah, get learning Mandarin with Inchin Closer, and hopefully you can get a job with Tech Mahindra soon. Thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch.
Yeah. All right, take care.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nazia. Shijao. Thank you, Rao. Nice meeting you. I mean, great opportunity to meet you again.
Yeah, we'll catch up offline. We'll catch up offline.
Absolutely.
Right.
And thanks all the audience for being patient. Thanks a lot.
Bye-bye.